Grimora.
It had been raining for hours, the kind of slow, steady rain that blurred the world into watercolor streaks. Amber leaned forward in the driver's seat, peering through the windshield wipers as they squeaked back and forth. The road ahead was empty, swallowed by fog. Only the glow of the headlights carved out a small slice of reality in front of them. They'd been driving since morning, 5 of them, crammed into Amber's SUV, tired, hungry, and just ready to be home. The trip was supposed to be a fun weekend away, one last escape before life pulled them all in different directions. But like most good plans, it had turned into exhaustion, wrong turns, and too much silence. Jenna sat up front next to Amber, one leg folded under her, scrolling endlessly through her phone. She kept saying she was looking for a new playlist, but really she was just avoiding conversation. In the back seat, Lewis had his head against the window, dozing off between the bumps in the road. Riley sat in the middle seat, arms crossed, staring at the GPS on her phone like she didn't trust it. Mason sat behind Amber, quiet as always, his earphones dangling without music. Amber sighed softly. "We'll stop soon. I just want to get past this stretch." Jenna looked up. "Are you sure we're still on the right road?" Amber hesitated. The GPS line glowed faintly on the screen, but the road name was blank, just a gray path. No town, no marker. "Yeah," she said finally, "we're fine." Riley leaned forward between the seats. "It says no service. How's your GPS even working?" Amber frowned. "It's cached, maybe? I don't know. I downloaded the map earlier." "Great," Lewis muttered from the back, eyes still closed. "So we're relying on maybe." Jenna nudged Amber's arm gently. "Relax. We'll hit a town soon. Gas, food, real bathrooms, the usual American dream." Amber smiled faintly, but didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the road, straight, dark, endless. The trees pressed close from both sides, wet leaves glistening like mirrors. Every now and then a shape would move in the fog, but when she looked again, it was gone. For a while, nobody talked. The hum of the tires, the rain, and the occasional click of the wipers were the only sounds. Amber found it almost hypnotic, like the road itself was pulling them forward. Then Mason spoke, his voice quiet but clear. "Anyone else notice we haven't seen another car in like an hour?" Jenna looked out her window. "It's Sunday night. Everyone's home." "Still," he said, "no headlights, no taillights, nothing." Riley frowned. "He's right. We've been driving a long time, not even a gas station." Amber nodded slightly. "Yeah, I've noticed." Lewis yawned. "Maybe we took a back road by mistake. Chill. We'll hit the highway soon." But something about Mason's tone stuck with Amber. She tried to shake it off, but the silence that followed felt heavier now. A few minutes later, the road curved sharply, and the GPS rerouted with a small beep. The screen flashed for a second. Then the road name appeared, Hollow Bend Road. Amber frowned. "That's new." Riley leaned closer. "What's new?" "This road. The name wasn't there before." Jenna tilted her head. "Maybe it loaded late." Lewis chuckled. "Hollow Bend. Sounds like the kind of place people get murdered in horror movies." Amber smirked. "Don't jinx it." But as she said it, the air inside the car seemed to thicken. The fog outside pressed closer against the windows, glowing faintly in the headlights like it was alive.
Mason spoke again, barely above a whisper. "Did anyone see that?" "See what?" Jenna asked. He pointed out his window. "Someone standing by the trees." Amber slowed slightly. peering through the mist. Nothing, just wet trunks and moving shadows. "There's no one there," she said. "Maybe it was a sign," Riley suggested. But Mason's voice had that distant edge again. No, it was a person. The tension broke a little when Lewis laughed. "Dude, you've been listening to too many podcasts." Mason didn't laugh back. "Maybe." They drove on. The fog grew thicker, the rain quieter. The GPS voice spoke again. "Continue for 6 miles." Jenna shifted uncomfortably. 6 miles to where? Amber checked the display. It didn't say, just destination ahead. "It must be the highway," she said, trying to sound confident. But a small doubt had started to take root. About 20 minutes later, they finally saw lights ahead, a faint yellow glow through the mist. "Finally," Riley said, sitting up, "civilization." As they approached, the glow turned out to be from a roadside diner. Old neon letters buzzed half-lit, "Marty's Diner, open 24 hours." Amber pulled in, relief flooding her. The parking lot was almost empty, just one old pickup near the entrance. Inside, the diner smelled like coffee in grease. The neon buzzed faintly above rows of red leather booths. A waitress stood behind the counter, flipping through a magazine. She looked up when they entered, gave a tired smile. "Hey there, folks. You're out late." Amber nodded. "Yeah, just driving home from the coast." "Where are you headed?" Amber hesitated. Hollow Bend Road?" The woman's smile faltered just a little. "That's not much of a road anymore." Riley frowned. "What do you mean?" The waitress shrugged. "It doesn't go anywhere. Been closed off for years. Flooding took out the bridge." Amber felt her stomach tighten. "But our GPS has it as a through road." "Well," she said slowly, "I double-checked that. GPS can't tell when a road is dead." They exchanged uneasy glances.
Lewis laughed nervously. "We'll just eat and figure it out later." The waitress nodded. "Coffee?" "Please," Amber said. They slid into a booth. The window beside them rattled softly in the wind. Outside, the fog had crept closer to the glass. "Okay," Riley said, taking out her phone. "So either our map's bugged or—" She stopped. "That's weird." "What?" Jenna asked. "No signal. At all." Lewis pulled his out too. Same. Amber's phone was dead. The battery had drained faster than it should have. Mason, staring out the window, said quietly, "Don't freak out, but that pickup out front? It's gone." Jenna frowned. "What do you mean, gone?" "It was right there when we came in." Lewis leaned over to look. The parking space was empty, the pavement wet where tires had been, but no sound of an engine leaving. Amber forced a laugh. "Maybe they went around back." "Maybe," Mason said softly, "but I didn't hear anything." The waitress brought over their coffee, steam curling up between them. Her smile looked thinner now. "You folks should head out before too long. Fog gets real thick out this way. People lose their bearings." Amber nodded slowly. "Yeah, thanks for the warning." As they drank in silence, the lights above flickered once, just for a second, but long enough that Amber saw something impossible reflected in the glass. 6 figures sitting at their booth. She blinked hard. Only 5. They left the diner an hour later, the fog now thick enough to blur the world into a dim gray tunnel. Amber gripped the steering wheel tighter, the faint buzz of caffeine keeping her awake. The others were quieter now, all a little uneasy, like something from that place had followed them out. No one said much for the first few miles. The rain had slowed to a mist, the wipers squeaking every few seconds. The GPS still showed their route as Hollow Bend Road, stretching forward into nowhere. Lewis broke the silence first. So, if the bridge was out years ago, how's the road still open? Jenna shrugged. Maybe they fixed it. Then why didn't the waitress know? Riley leaned her head against the window. Because she's probably used to scaring travelers. It's the middle of nowhere. Creepy diner talk sells tips. Amber didn't respond. She couldn't shake what she had seen in that reflection. 6 people in their booth instead of 5. She wanted to tell someone, but her brain kept convincing her she'd imagined it. A few minutes later, Mason spoke from the back seat. "Anyone else smell that?" Lewis sniffed. "Smell what?" "Like wet dirt." Amber inhaled slowly. The car smelled faintly of rain, sure, but there was something else. Damp, musty, almost like soil. "Maybe from our shoes," she said, but her tone lacked conviction. Jenna turned up the heat, trying to dry the air. "Whatever it is, it's gross." For a while, nobody spoke again. The fog pressed closer, so thick the headlights bounced back at them. Amber slowed down, squinting at the faint yellow lines on the pavement. And then, a voice from the back. Soft, muffled, almost casual. "Can we roll the window down?" Amber froze. "What?" "I didn't say anything," Mason said. "Neither did I." Riley's head turned sharply. "Who said that?" Silence. Amber forced a shaky laugh. "Probably the radio picking up something, static voices?" But the radio was off. Lewis leaned forward between the seats. "Okay, that was creepy." Mason stared out his window. "Amber, pull over for a second." "Why?" "Just do it." She hesitated, then eased the car onto the shoulder. The engine idled softly. Mason leaned down, picking up something from the floor behind his seat, a folded gray hoodie. "Whose is this?" he asked. Jenna turned. "Not mine." Riley shook her head. "Nope." Lewis frowned. "I didn't bring a hoodie." Amber looked confused. "Wait, that's not mine either." The hoodie was damp, like it had been outside. A faint muddy streak ran along one sleeve. Mason turned it over. Inside the hood, near the collar, someone had written in marker, "Property of H." Riley frowned. "H who?" Lewis tried to laugh, but it came out forced. "Maybe Hitchhiker. Maybe that's his name." Nobody found it funny. Mason dropped the hoodie on the seat beside him. "Let's keep driving." Amber hesitated, then nodded. She pulled back onto the road, her hands shaking slightly on the wheel. For the next 20 minutes, they drove in silence again. The only sound was the faint hum of tires on wet asphalt. Every now and then, the fog would thin just enough to show glimpses of trees or fence posts, but always the same pattern, repeating like scenery in a dream. Riley eventually whispered, "We've passed that same sign 3 times." Amber blinked. "What sign?" "The one that says Hollow Bend 3 miles. It's been 3 miles for 15 minutes. Louise groaned. "Don't start that weird time loop crap." But when they passed it again, everyone saw it clearly. Hollow Bend, 3 miles ahead. The tension in the car turned solid. Amber slowed to a crawl. GPS says we're still moving forward. Riley glanced at her screen. "It's glitching. The arrow's shaking." Mason muttered, "It's not the GPS." Amber looked in the rearview mirror. Mason's reflection stared back, but his lips weren't moving in sync. For a half second, the version of him in the mirror smiled faintly, while the real Mason looked straight ahead. Amber blinked hard, gripping the wheel tighter. Jenna's voice broke the silence. "Can we please just turn around? I don't care where this goes." Louise nodded. "Yeah, backtrack to the diner." Amber tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. Finally, she whispered, "Okay."
She slowed the car, turned it around carefully, and started driving back the way they came. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No diner, no crossroads, just the same empty fog. Riley checked her phone again. Still no service. Jenna's voice cracked slightly. Are we stuck? Luis exhaled loudly. No, we're just turned around. The fog's messing with us. But then Mason said, quietly, no, it's not. They all looked at him. He stared at the road, his expression hollow. We're not turned around. We're going forward. It just wants us to think we're not. Who's it? Luis asked. Mason didn't answer. Amber's chest tightened. She forced herself to keep her voice steady. Okay, stop. We're tired. We've been driving too long. We'll find a place to pull over and rest. Where? Jenna whispered. It's just fog. Anywhere. A clearing. A shoulder. But even as she said it, the road ahead began to change. The fog thinned, revealing something dark and jagged rising from the ground, a half-collapsed bridge. Metal beams twisted upward like ribs. The pavement ended in a sheer drop into darkness. Amber slammed the brakes. The car skidded, stopping just feet from the edge. Everyone lurched forward, gasping. Holy... Louis started, but stopped. Because standing on the other side of that broken bridge was a figure. A man in a gray hoodie, soaked in rain, facing them. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, watching.
Jenna whispered, "Is that..." Amber's voice shook. "Get your phones, now!" They all scrambled, holding them up to record, but the screen stayed black. Even with flash on, the cameras refused to focus. Riley whispered, "Why can't it see him?" Louis swallowed, because he's not there. But the figure took a single step forward, and then the headlights flickered. For half a second, there were 2 figures, then 3. Then the fog swallowed them all. Amber tried the ignition again. Nothing. "Come on," she whispered, slamming her hand on the wheel. "Come on, please!" The radio snapped to life, full of static. Then a voice came through, faint, like underwater. 5 passengers, incomplete. Luis's voice rose. "What did it say?" Jenna was shaking. "It said 5 passengers incomplete." Riley looked around, her breath catching. Incomplete, meaning what? No one answered. The radio hissed louder, then fell silent again. Amber finally turned the key. The engine sputtered, caught, and roared to life. She hit the gas, spitting the car around, speeding back into the fog. No one spoke for a long time, just the sound of the road beneath them. Eventually, Luis whispered, "Okay, someone explain what the hell is happening." Riley's voice trembled. "We must have picked up something. Someone. And we forgot." "That's ridiculous," Jenna snapped. "We've been 5 the whole time." Amber didn't answer. Because she suddenly remembered something. A brief image from earlier in the day, before the diner. A rest stop. A stranger sitting on the bench. Someone asking if they had room for one more. But that memory didn't feel clear. It felt like a dream trying to crawl out of the dark. She pressed harder on the gas. "We're almost out of this. Just hang on." Riley stared ahead, her face pale. "Amber, look at the road." Amber squinted. Through the fog, the sign appeared again. Hollow Bend, 3 miles ahead. Louise cursed. "No way. No way we looped again." Mason whispered, "It doesn't matter how far we go. The road's feeding us back." Amber whispered, almost to herself, "Then how do we stop it?" Nobody answered. For a while, all they could hear was the soft hum of the engine. The fog pressed tighter, the windows fogging from the inside. Luis rubbed his sleeve against the glass to clear it and froze. There was a handprint on the outside. Wet.
fresh. And next to it, another one, smaller. Jenna screamed, "Who's out there?" Amber swerved slightly, panicked. "Everyone stay calm." But when she looked into the rearview mirror, her blood ran cold. There were 6 silhouettes in the reflection. She turned sharply, staring into the back seat. Only 4 faces looking back. She whispered, "Who's the 6th?" Mason's voice broke. "Don't look too long." Amber's throat tightened. "What?" "If you stare, you'll see who it is, and once you see, it remembers you." Louise snapped, "What the hell are you talking about?" But Mason's eyes were locked on the fog. "We shouldn't have stopped at that diner. We shouldn't have picked anyone up." Amber's pulse was racing. "Mason, how do you—" He looked down at the hoodie beside him, the one that wasn't theirs. "I remember the name now," he whispered. "H stands for Henry." Riley frowned. "Who's Henry?" Mason's lips trembled. "He sat right here, between us." Everyone turned to the empty seat next to him. There was a faint indentation in the fabric. Amber felt the air shift, cold, heavy, and close. Then the radio crackled one last time. 6 passengers accounted for. The engine died. The lights went out. And in the darkness, someone exhaled softly, right beside Amber's ear.
The darkness inside the car was absolute. No headlights, no dashboard glow, only the faint outline of faces, barely lit by the dying phone screens. Amber's pulse thudded in her ears. "Don't move," she whispered. Nobody did. They could all hear it. Slow, steady breathing coming from somewhere in the car. Not panicked, not tired, just calm. Riley's shaking voice cut through the silence. "Mason, tell me you're breathing like that." Mason didn't answer. Jenna turned her phone toward him. The light flicked across his face. His eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead, lips parted slightly. But he wasn't breathing. "Mason!" He blinked, looked at her, confused. "What?" Riley swallowed hard. "You stopped breathing." Mason frowned, touching his chest. "No, I didn't." But Amber heard it again. That steady inhale, exhale, and it was coming from behind her seat. She slowly reached for the ignition, her fingers trembling. The key refused to turn. Lewis leaned forward. "Try again." She did. The car didn't even click. The breathing stopped. And then a whisper. Not inside the car, but everywhere around it, like the fog itself was speaking. "Don't leave me." Jenna covered her ears, shaking her head. "No, no, no, no!" Riley whispered. "Who are you?" No answer. Only the sound of something brushing softly against the outside of the car, circling them. Amber closed her eyes. "It's just the wind. It's just the wind." Lewis muttered. "Wind doesn't whisper names." Amber opened her eyes again, forcing herself to stay calm. "We have to get out. We'll walk until we find lights." "Out there?" Riley said. "You can't even see a hand in front of your face." But sitting still was worse. Every second in that car felt like being buried alive. Amber pushed the door open. Cold air rushed in, wet and heavy. She stepped out slowly, phone light shaking in her hand. The fog swallowed the beam instantly. "Everyone stay close," she said. Lewis got out next, then Jenna and Riley. Mason was last, hesitating. He glanced back at the hoodie on the seat, then shut the door behind him.
They stood on the empty road, 5 figures in a gray void. The car's shape disappeared within seconds, the fog too thick to see more than a few feet. "Which way?" Jenna asked. Amber pointed forward, back toward the diner. "Just keep walking." They started moving, their footsteps crunching softly on wet gravel. For a few minutes, the only sound was the echo of their steps. Then Riley whispered, "Do you hear that?" Amber listened. Faintly, somewhere ahead, the creak of wood, like something swaying. Lewis squinted. "Bridge?" They walked faster.
The shape slowly came into view, but it wasn't the bridge. It was a bus stop shelter, old and half-collapsed, the sign rusted and unreadable. Amber sighed. "We can rest here for a second." They huddled inside the shelter, its roof dripping condensation. A faded route map was still tacked to the wall, smeared from age. Riley ran her fingers along the glass panel. "Look at this. There's a note carved here." They leaned closer. Someone had scratched words into the surface with something sharp. "Hollow Bend Shuttle. Last route, October 29th, 2013. Below it, smaller letters. 6 passengers lost. Jenna stepped back. "Wait, 2013? That's 12 years ago," Louise finished. Amber's voice shook. "What kind of shuttle loses 6 passengers?" Riley's hand trembled as she pointed lower. "There's more writing. 1 stayed behind." The fog shifted outside. A dark figure moved past the edge of the shelter, too quick to see clearly. Mason turned slowly. "Did you see that?" Louise whispered. "Someone's out there." Amber's heart raced. "It's okay, maybe a driver, someone who can help." But when they looked again, the figure stood still, only a few feet away now. Amber raised her phone light towards it. It was a man in a gray hoodie, water dripping from his sleeves. His head tilted slightly to one side. "Henley," Mason whispered. The man smiled faintly, not cruelly, but sadly. Amber stepped back. "Who are you?" Henry's voice was quiet, rough, like someone speaking through wet cloth. "You forgot me." Riley shook her head. "We never met you." "You did." Mason's eyes filled with tears. "We picked you up. You were sitting between us. You said you were going to Hollow Bend." Amber turned to him, horrified. "You remember?" He nodded slowly. "It was raining. He asked for a ride. Said his car broke down. I told him we could take him as far as the bridge." Henry's eyes locked on Mason. "You said it was fine. You said there was room." Louise whispered, "What happened?" Mason's voice cracked. "He got out at the bridge. Said he'd walk the rest of the way." Henry's tone dropped lower. "But you didn't wait." Amber's stomach twisted. "Wait for what?" Henry stepped closer. "For me to cross." The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly, a deep vibration that made the shelter creak. Riley gasped, "What's happening?" Henry's voice almost a whisper. "You're on my route now." Amber grabbed Mason's arm. "Run!" They bolted out of the shelter, into the fog, the sound of footsteps echoing everywhere. But the road stretched endlessly in both directions, identical, looping. No matter which way they ran, the same broken bridge appeared ahead, waiting.
Jenna fell, scraping her hands. Louise pulled her up. "Keep going!" Amber turned back once. Henry was still walking behind them, slow, steady, the fog parting around him like he belonged to it. They reached the bridge edge again. Amber looked down.
The drop vanished into pitch black water. Louise shouted, "We can't cross!" Mason turned, desperate. "We can't stay either!" The bridge groaned, as if something beneath it shifted. Riley screamed, "He's right behind us!" Amber grabbed Mason's sleeve. "What does he want?" Mason whispered, "To finish the ride." Henry stopped a few feet away. His expression was unreadable now, calm, resigned. "You left me," he said quietly. "Now one of you stays." Amber's heart pounded. "Please, don't do this." Henry tilted his head. "The road needs 6. The fog swirled violently around them, cold air pulling at their clothes. One by one, their phone lights blinked out, swallowed by the dark. Amber could barely see Mason's outline beside her. "No, stay together!" Then a splash, sharp, distant, like something falling into water. "Who was that?" Jenna screamed. No answer. Amber turned frantically. Only 4 shapes remained beside her. Louise shouted, "Mason's gone!" Henry was gone too. The fog settled again, heavy and silent. Amber stumbled backwards, tears in her eyes. "No, no, no!" Riley grabbed her shoulders. "We have to go!" They ran, blindly, aimlessly, until the fog began to thin. And then ahead, faint lights appeared. A gas station. Old, flickering, but real. They staggered inside, the bell over the door jingling. The man behind the counter looked up lazily from his newspaper. "Rough night?" he said. Amber could barely breathe. "You don't understand. There was an accident. A man." The attendant frowned. "You're the carpool group, right? Came through earlier." Louise nodded quickly. Yeah, that's us." The man raised an eyebrow. "5 of you, right?" Amber hesitated. "Yes, 5. He smiled slightly. "Just making sure." She frowned. "Why?" He shrugged. "We get a lot of folks through here who swear there were more." Riley's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He looked at them for a moment, then back to his paper. "Sometimes they say they had 6. Sometimes they can't remember who. Always the same story." Amber's voice cracked. "You've heard it before?" "Every few years. Different car, same road, same fog." Jenna whispered, "What happens to them?" He turned the page, eyes not meeting hers. "Some never make it here." The door creaked open behind them. A gust of cold air blew through the room. Amber turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was Mason, soaking wet. His face was pale, lips blue. But he smiled faintly. "Sorry, I fell behind." Louise froze. "Mason!" Amber took a step forward. "How did you—" He cut her off gently. "It's okay. You're safe now." She hesitated. Something in his tone didn't sound right. The attendant watched quietly, saying nothing. Mason's smile didn't fade. "We can go now." Amber stared into his eyes, and in the reflection of the glass door behind him, she saw 6 figures again. The radio behind the counter crackled softly. 6 passengers accounted for. Mason reached out his hand. Amber took a single step back, and the lights in the gas station flickered out. Darkness. The faint hum of the refrigerator stopped. The clock on the wall froze. Only the sound of rain. And a voice, soft, close, almost kind. "Thank you for remembering me." When the lights returned, a minute later,
The store was empty. The clerk looked around slowly, confused. Outside, the fog was gone. The road was dry. Only the car remained in the lot, engine idling, doors closed. Inside, there were 6 seats, all filled.